What can I do about climate change? Some years ago, people might have required a stronger grasp of how science works to fully understand what it meant when we said that the scientific consensus pointed to humans as the primary drivers of climate change on Earth. We needed to comprehend why achieving scientific consensus in any field is so challenging, and more importantly, how scientists arrived at the conclusion that their data supported this claim beyond any doubt. Nowadays, all we need to do is glance at the headlines or look out our windows. From devastating wildfires and hurricanes to huge mud floods, or even the noticeable shifts in winter and summer temperatures, it is here, unfolding before our eyes. Hi, this is Climate Resilience with Cynthia, and together we'll explore evidence-based information to face climate change. For those of us who pay closer attention, 2024 was the first calendar year in which the global average temperature exceeded 1.5 Celsius above pre-industrial levels. This milestone was confirmed by multiple climate monitoring organizations, including Copernicus Climate Change Service. Just to be clear, the Paris Agreement's goal of limiting warming to 1.5 Celsius above pre-industrial levels refers to long-term averages, typically measured over 20 to 30 years, rather than individual years. Personally, I disagree with the idea of considering 20 to 30 years as a condition to be fulfilled, because if we wait that long to do anything, the measurement itself could be rather useless. Either way, lots of us are aware of the potential and scary future consequences of climate change, and that makes us wonder, what should we do about it? There seems to be a dichotomy between the individual actions and the systemic change required. Lots of people seem to move between two strong points of view. Either we, as individuals, can't do anything because this is a problem that rich corporations should solve, or we should all feel guilty for not doing enough. Let's untangle this with data. My personal carbon footprint. You have probably already tried to assess your personal carbon footprint at some point with any of the many online calculators available for this. The carbon footprint concept developed from an environmental management methodology called life cycle assessment. This was one of the first ways to measure the impact of a product or system over its entire lifetime. Companies like Coca-Cola initially developed such tools in the 1970s to help cut energy use during the energy crisis. Although the term carbon footprint specifically first appeared in a BBC vegetarian food magazine in 1999. And it was until 2005 that fossil fuel company BP popularized the idea of a carbon footprint for individuals. The campaign instructed people to calculate their personal footprints and provided ways for people to go on a low-carbon diet. The first reason why lots of people criticize the metric is because they feel this was a way of BP and other companies to disregard their own responsibility by shaming individuals into making them responsible for their own CO2 release. The calculators vary somewhat because they cannot account for all variables. For instance, one of the calculators assumes I live in the UK and penalizes me for not having a heat-insulated house. However, I live in Latin America where my house is in fact not heat-insulated, but I also never heat it during winter. It makes no sense to have heat insulation, although the calculator assumes otherwise. I think this other calculator probably tells me a more reasonable story about myself, although some of the questions only allow me to give estimates. And as you can see, the variation of the estimated carbon footprint is very different among both tools, corporations and their carbon footprint. On the other hand, you may have probably come across this kind of headlines, where it clearly states that 32 companies are to be blamed for half of the whole planet's carbon emissions. And you can even see which companies are to blame the most. Energy companies from Saudi Arabia, India, China. You can even go further to the source and check historically which companies have been the major contributors. You will notice BP listed among others. So, individuals or corporations? Who is it to blame? Well, both of us. The average carbon footprint per capita in the US in 2023 was 13.83 metric tons, which is higher than my supposedly calculated personal footprint. Presumably, in 2024, there were 343 million people in the US. Hence, we're talking about 4.75 billion metric tons of CO2 released by humans in the US alone. Now, if we compare that number against this table which estimates carbon dioxide emissions only in 2023, well, humans, only in the US, do account for more emissions than the highest listed company there. And of course, these energy companies, well, they are there polluting because whatever they sell is bought, is needed by someone. So yes, we are all collectively involved either way. This, of course, takes us back to the original question. What can I do about climate change? To be fair, people in different parts of the world do contribute to this problem in varying proportions. But we're talking about 8 billion people in the whole world. If every year each one of us could avoid releasing 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide, we would be preventing the release of 8 billion metric tons, which again would be more than the worst offender on this list. Should we all stop our lives to avoid carbon emissions? Absolutely not. Can a single one of us solve this problem? Absolutely not. But yes, all of us together can do something about it. And yes, all of us together could do even more than some of the largest corporations. As we discussed in this video, you can start by not wasting resources on idle ChatGPT questions or not creating Ghibli-style images with it. If you can't use public transportation or a bike, try sharing your car at least once in a while. Reduce your meat consumption. Even if you just cut your meat consumption once a week, it counts. If you can install solar panels or other type of green energy at home, do it. If you could only install solar binders in your windows, do it. If you can only do one little thing every now and then, do it. Not everyone can afford to make changes, but if you can, go for them. In the next videos, we'll try to discuss further ways of making our contribution to this cause. Subscribe to the channel and share our content. You can also support the creation of climate resilience content with small donations to our Patreon account. Thank you.